So, maybe it's an opportunity here. I don't know.
So we're buying call options?
As you already mentioned.
We're buying call options then? Is that what we're doing?
Okay, stop with the investment advice.
How many disclaimers can we pile on this news story?
Welcome to the Fiscal Foxhole, the podcast proving you don't need a degree in finance, just some grit, a game plan, and maybe a sense of humor. Your hosts are retired Army veteran Rob Moore and retired Marine veteran Omen and Together, they'll help you dodge financial landmines, call in the air support on your savings, and laugh at the ridiculous money mistakes we've all made. If you can survive mandatory fund days, you can survive personal finance. Welcome to the Foxhole.
Welcome to the Fiscal Foxhole. I am your host once again, Omen and I am joined in the Foxhole by my battle buddy, Rob Moore.
Good afternoon,
hey, Rob.
Omen. Hi, how are you today?
I'm excellent. Excellent as always. Just recording here on a beautiful day in the fall. So, speaking of which, I think we need to talk about something that I think we neglected to talk about this on our first show. And that is, what is our foxhole environment like here? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if you're not watching the video, Omen and I, we took our e-tools, right? Dug this out of raw earth, created this ourselves. Nice foxhole. It is a little nicer than the field exercises than when I was in. I've got some warm coffee and internet, it's a little bit different. It's much nicer than I remember.
My chair is not carved out of the corner of the hole. I've actually been able to, we've built this hole big enough where I could actually just drop a chair in it, and I'm very comfortable here. So,
So one question, are we sleeping like head to toe? What are we doing?
We need to figure this one out still. Let's come back to that.
Fair enough.
Let's come back to that.
All right. Hey, what are we talking about today?
Well, yeah. So today's topic is TSP, IRA, or YOLO. Which one is better for you when you start to save your money? Before we get to that, we are going to get to the headline of the week. What does a government shutdown mean for stocks? And this comes out of Kiplinger from Dan Burrows. And what he writes here, although the market hates the threat of federal government shutdown, an outcome that looks increasingly possible should Congress not agree to a funding bill before the end of the month, the S&P 500's performance during the past shutdowns has been pretty good. So here we are. We're recording this towards the end of September. The government still has not made a decision on the budget. I do feel like this is kind of a repeat issue every single year as we approach the fiscal year.
Right.
Yeah. My last job, in the Marine Corps, was in acquisitions. So this is a story told every single year as we're trying to get more money for projects and to pay our federal employees and on and on. Anyway, side story there. So as we face another government shutdown, the market actually has performed quite well in September, where historically speaking, in September, the market doesn't really perform well. Should anybody be concerned about this?
Yeah. Yes and no. 2 disclaimers. Yeah, we're recording this at the end of September. Well, the 3rd week of September, right? So just kind of put a timestamp. And this is for those of you wondering which government shutdown we're talking about. It's been like 10 in the last handful of years. But so that's when we're late 2025, September 2025. We got this looming ahead of us. So that first disclaimer. Second disclaimer is for those who are personally affected by this, it's real. Okay, there are real people, my wife included, government employees. So she's ridden through these. The good news is she's always been made whole at the end of it. So if they do shut down and pay is frozen for a certain amount of time, it's always been made whole in the back end, but still a terrible feeling. So can we just acknowledge that first? There's a real people caught up in this. But as far as the issue itself, this is turning into a perennial weapon. I don't mean to editorialize here too much, but kind of a weapon being used over and over again from one party to another to kind of, we're going to hold the government hostage unless we get what we want or negotiate what we want. The fact that the stock market does well is a very satisfying indicator. I don't want to say that the government isn't necessary, right? I'm not going to go that far. But actually what it shows me is something that I've preached often when we talk about investing, especially if you're in an index funds like you and I prefer, that every day around the world, even if you're invested globally, hundreds of millions or billions of people go to work and work towards making a better widget or a better service to provide others. Everyone, all these people go and they work hard and they try to make something better or build something and create economic growth. That happens no matter what. Our government can shut down for a week or 2 weeks. That's still going to roll. The commerce, the corporations, they do not care. They're like, hey man, no, we're going forward. We're going to make the thing. We're going to sell the goods and the services and make your life better. So if anything, I'm stopping short of my soapbox, but that's just a really good indicator that, hey, the economy moves on.
Yeah. The reality is, and it's written here back in the article, there have been 22 government shutdowns since 1976, but only on 4 occasions were operations affected for more than one business day, writes Jeffrey Buckbinder, chief equity strategist at LPL Financial. That leaves us with only 4 true shutdowns, Buckbinder notes, the last occurring in late 2018 and into 2019. So if we've only had 4 real shutdowns and the market continues to not really react to these shutdowns or even the threat of shutdowns, let's ask the what if question here. What if the market actually does start to decline as a result of headline news that the government is shutting down or already has shut down?
I think you and I are not going to have any actionable items for this because I think we're both going to say, stay put. If you're investing for the long term, this is something that might be of interest to you, but should be of no concern.
The tagline for any new investments that you're going to get or investment advice, and this is not investment advice, but you're going to hear past performance is no guarantee of future results.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the record for stocks in government shutdowns is actually almost encouraging, as you already mentioned, Rob.
Right.
So, maybe it's an opportunity here. I don't know.
So we're buying call options.
As you already mentioned.
We're buying call options then? Is that what we're doing?
Okay. Stop with the investment advice.
How many disclaimers can we pile on this news story?
All right. But this is like predicting, right? There's going to be a recession someday. Build your investment portfolio for both the sunny days and the rainy days and turn off the news. It's probably the best advice that I could give you in this scenario. Don't take this headline and this particular headline is actually a good headline, I think, but there are many other headlines that would make you worry that the fact that the government shutdown is going to do something with your investments. So don't take the fear bait on this one. Turn off the news, build your portfolio for both sunny and rainy days.
Amen to that. A lot of people want to sell fear any opportunity they get. This is a ripe opportunity for that. Just avoid it. Read it. Be interested in it. Sure, be aware, but yeah, don't fall into it.
All right, well, let's get into today's topic. So you've heard about this thing about saving for retirement. You have the TSP if you're either in the military or a federal employee. You might have heard about this thing called an IRA. It's a lot of money to save, but that new bass boat looks pretty tempting. YOLO! Come on, Rob, you got to be there with me. YOLO!
YOLO.
Got to get the bass boat.
YOLO. Yeah, I'm going to go YOLO. YOLO. Yeah, you hit this. You started this last episode. If you haven't gone back, go back and listen to our first episode. We talk about savings and debt, and you outlined in that one, I think this first point here, the 50-30-20. Can you briefly talk about that one more time? I think that's a good place to start.
We start with this 50-30-20 or 50-20-20-10 rule of thumb. Remember, rule of thumb, not rule of law. But it gives us a great framing point to how much money do we actually put into savings towards retirement, towards bigger goals. It could actually be towards YOLO, right? Like there's this portion of income that we're giving ourselves permission to save. And in either rule of thumb, 50-30-20 or 50-20-20-10, it's 20%. 20% of your gross income. Gross income. The hardest part about this is if you're not doing it, if you're not flexing your savings muscle right now, it really is like if you go to the gym for the first time and you've in a long time or ever, I don't know about you, Rob, but give it about 2 or 3 days later, and I can't move. I am so sore. It is so painful. It makes me not want to go back to the gym ever again, right? So you could actually be in a very similar position when you save, that this might feel really painful, so painful that you don't ever want to save
you don't
again.
even want to start.
What I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good analogy, going to the gym and feeling that pain right at the beginning. Although when you're at the gym and you get that pain, that soreness, that's an indicator you're doing it right, probably, and you need to continue. You can do this. You can start and just say, hey, let's go for 20. I don't save anything now. I don't have any in savings. It's hard to know how much you can afford. Why not? Just go for 20. Do it for a month. And if it doesn't work, then draw it back to something that you can tolerate, for at least for the immediate short to long term. And then you can bump it up as you go. And speaking of starting, the 20% to this point we're on right now is a very intimidating number, especially if you're making beginning wages. If you're starting out in the military as a young service member, the 20% number can sound, if you've never earned any money, 20% can sound like too much. So it's intimidating, and therefore we'll get to the end here, how to simplify this when you're starting out. But just don't worry about hitting that 20. At least start with something. Start with the match and then bump it up when you can. I'll link an article I wrote called The 1% Bump, especially tailored towards military, that you can bump your TSP up by 1% every year, every 2-year bump, and every promotion. And it works well. You're still allowed an increase in your lifestyle that those pay adjustments should bring, but you're also bringing your savings up to where they need to be.
You mentioned that 20% is a lot, and it is a lot, especially if you haven't done this. Starting off with little things that you can change in your life. So even if it's 1%, as you said, Rob, it's something. It's a change, and it's manageable. If you make it so that you're changing your complete lifestyle, it's just like dieting, even, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to throw out everything in the pantry, and I'm going to just completely change the way that I eat. How long is that going to last? So make small changes that are manageable in your life and do things that reduce friction. If it's painful for you or it takes effort for you to make a contribution to an IRA or TSP every single month, automate it. So you don't even have to think about it. The TSP contributions are automated. So you go into My Pay, you set a percentage, and you let it go. And then you never see it come out of your paycheck. It just goes to your TSP account. For IRA contributions, automate some kind of contribution to your IRA each month. So you never have to think about it. It just comes out on the first of the month, 15th of the month, whatever you want to set up. So I'm a huge fan of automation.
Yeah. The first one's easier, coming right out of your paycheck, because you never see it. The IRA is a little harder because you do have to monitor cash flow. If you're putting $100 a month into your IRA, you just got to make sure that cash is there when that contribution is set to take place.
So our next point here is 20%. We're going to keep coming back to this number of 20%, Rob, because it is a lot of money. I think the question that people might ask is 20% the number that you're actually putting into your retirement account, like your TSP and your IRA?
Yeah, I don't think so. It's easier to know what number you're supposed to have for your retirement the later you get in your journey, because it depends on what you started with. I've met with many couples in their 30s that started their savings muscle early, and they did even less than 10% when they started out. And now they're in their mid 30s and the compounding interest is starting to take over. And in fact, they're ahead of schedule for funding their retirement. And in fact, they almost have too much put away in retirement accounts to the point that, hey, you're going to need something to maybe support you if you want to do something fun in the military retirement before you hit real retirement. So I'm getting a little off point, but it depends, and you'll know more as you get later in life. But starting out, 20% is a good number, but here, as we're going to dig into it doesn't all have to be retirement.
I think that this starts to dig into, and I know you already mentioned we're getting a little off point here, but that this also points to questions related to people who are getting ready to retire to ask, how much do I actually need to save up for retirement? Very difficult to know that when you are just starting out in your career, you're just starting out down the savings journey. it's a little easier actually to answer as you get older and understand that you've now got a pension. You've got some form or fashion of Social Security. You might have disability coming through. And these are all guaranteed forms of income that support your lifestyle that are then supplemented by whatever you have saved. And to your point, Rob, some people have actually saved too much. It's weird to think about that. I know that for me personally, I have had conversations with clients who were worried that they were behind on their savings. But actually, when we pointed out to them that y'all need to please spend some more money so that you can not have such a huge tax bill, or, not force a tax bill onto your kids or whatever the case might be. Like you probably need to spend a little bit more money. So
yeah, that's really great, because that mentality of I haven't been saving enough, it's because they're borrowing, or they're thinking about their retirement savings as a private employee would, because that's what is kind of universally accepted across the board for regular people in regular jobs is 10%. So if you're in the military, if you haven't been doing that and you're thinking, well, I haven't been doing 10% and I'm 10 years into my career, I'm screwed, I'm way behind. When in reality, yeah, you're not thinking about your pension, potential disability, and those structured payments that you're going to enjoy for the rest of your life. It makes a huge difference. So don't be discouraged. And also remember, maybe factor in, when you're thinking about your living expenses, factor in those structured payments that you will likely get. So with that in mind, we're borrowing convention from the private world. Well, let's go back to the 20 number. The 20 number that we talk about, the 50, 30, 20, which I like. I don't particularly use a lot, but I like it. The 20 doesn't all have to be retirement savings. For the reasons we've already stated, especially for military, it doesn't all have to be retirement. And in fact, we've noted a couple of circumstances where people have oversaved in those retirement accounts, and now that money's locked away and they can't get to it until they're 59 and a half, or other circumstances arise. So we can split that 20 in smaller chunks. We can go back to the 10% of your income towards retirement and keep that. The other 10%, even though it's not for retirement, it can be for other savings goals. Emergency fund. You can put it in a brokerage account if you don't have a certain goal in mind. It could be kind of a catch-all for anything. Or you can save towards other goals like a 529 education, certain term goals like a home renovation or down payment on a car or home or something like that. So that 10% can actually go towards that, help your quality of life in the meantime before you hit retirement.
excellent points there. One other aspect of this too, we mentioned, whatever percentage you decide to save into your retirement plans, and particularly into things like your TSP, just note that when you make your election in MyPay for a percentage of your income to go in your TSP, that is not based on your total income, right?
Yeah. You said it earlier, gross income. And I mean, I don't think there's any term too simple to explain, but gross income means the total of everything you make before taxes, right? So when you look on your LES all over, that first quadrant over on the left, the sum of all of that before taxes or any deductions are taken. And if you dig into it, if you want to kind of overthink it a little bit and just be aware, it is important that the TSP is factored on your basic pay only, right? It's not factored on your BAH or your BAC, BAS, anything like that. Any of those allowances, TSP is not taking any part of that. So if you do 10% and you say, okay, good, I'm good, I made 10%, you're not saving 10% of your gross pay, right? So you either want to factor that or just say, hey, maybe bump it up and just kind of like just estimate, which is good, right? But be aware, especially for the new ones starting out, when you're younger in the military, the allowances take a larger portion of your take-home pay, of your gross pay. Allowances take a larger portion of it. For newer members, it's almost 50% of your gross pay is those allowances, and TSP is not going to regard it. So in order to get to 10%, you actually have to set your TSP at 20. Okay? And then for the older people, E9s, 05, 06, et cetera, usually BAH accounts to, what did I say?
Except for the older people, come on.
the old guys that are in their 40s gross. When you get on, your allowances might be closer to 25 to 30% of your gross pay. So your TSP election will be closer to what it actually is.
Yeah, I think for the Excel nerds in the room here, I built a calculator for this. So I literally just have a 50, 30, 20 calculator that takes my gross pay and it tells me these are the amounts that I should be putting towards mandatory expenses, discretionary spending, and towards my savings. And then those become the numbers that I work with to try to hit those percentages in some kind of close proximity to those ranges, but doesn't always work out. But at least it helps give me a pretty decent idea of when I'm setting my percentage to save into TSP, am I hitting a number that's close to what my intended target actually was?
Yeah. If you need help with any of this, reach out, ask questions. We're happy to help you with those basic calculations. Absolutely.
I'm actually happy to send my calculator to anybody who asks for it. So I love handing that thing out.
fiscalfoxhole@gmail.com. Please hit us up. Let us know what you need and we can help you out.
Hi, y'all. Omen here. I know Rob and I have a lot of fun on the show, but I want to take a minute to get serious with you about Rob's financial planning firm, Everman Prosperity. Rob built his firm from the ground up around the core principle of being a fiduciary, serving the best interest of Americans and their families. No commissions, no sales, and no referral fees. Rob believes financial planning should be a transparent, ongoing process that provides peace of mind today and prosperous days tomorrow. Whether you're active duty, navigating retirement the first or the second time, need help managing your investments, or working to build a legacy, Rob meets you right where you are, but will never leave you there. Either click the link in the show notes or visit prosperwitheverman.com today to schedule your free consultation. Everman Prosperity. Pursue your prosperous life.
Everman Prosperity LLC is a registered investment advisor in the Commonwealth of Virginia. This advertisement is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice or a solicitation to buy or sell securities. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Please consult a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions.
So whenever it comes to the retirement side of your savings, there is a question that almost everyone has or everyone considers, and that's is do I use the Roth side or the traditional side of TSP or IRA? And we're talking about the different type of tax treatment up front and at the end, how contributions and distributions are treated. So it's a good thing to think about. It's a consideration you should make. What are your thoughts on that?
I know that the title of this episode is about savings and putting savings away. I honestly don't think that you can get around not talking about Roth and traditional or tax deferred accounts when we're talking about savings. We could have an entire episode about Roth and traditional and tax deferred and what does that mean, but it's probably important to at least get some of the basics out of the way. Number one, and I think this is myth broken here, is the progressive tax system that we live in today. How many times have you heard somebody say, oh, I'm in the 22% tax bracket. I'm getting taxed at 22% or getting taxed at 24% or, whatever that is. Yes, partly you're getting taxed at maybe that tax rate, but it's progressive. So that means as you move up the tax brackets of 10, 12, 22, 24, 32, 35, and 37, as your income gets into each one of these brackets, it's actually taxed at that percentage. So I don't have the brackets here in front of me, but first 10% for married filing jointly, I think is somewhere around $23,000. Your first $23,000 of taxable income is taxed at 10%. And then your income then moves into the next tax bracket of 12%. And whatever that is, if it's $50,000, whatever that difference is, so $23,000 to $50,000 is taxed at 12%. And on this goes. And so if your income actually gets into the 22% tax bracket, it's only the amount of income that's in the bracket itself, those dollars, that are taxed at 22%. So the number that I actually point people to is the effective tax rate. It's the average tax that you're paying on your taxable income, which is always, because of our progressive tax bracket. I don't use the word always very often, but I will use it here. It is always going to be lower than your marginal tax rate. So the thing that we're tracking when we talk do I save in Roth or do I save in tax deferred is, what is your effective tax rate at this point? And do we think in the future, is it going to be higher or lower? Because ultimately what we're trying to do, getting our crystal ball out here, what we're trying to do is predict the taxes I pay today versus the taxes I pay tomorrow to ultimately kind of smooth out that line across our lifetime.
Omen, you did a really good job breaking that down. It's about as good as a job as I think I could have done with that same information. But for someone who's listening, it was like, wait a minute, are we talking about Roth and traditional, or are we talking about taxes? And let me just draw in crayon just a little bit. Looking at you, Marine.
You would.
So the reason why this matters is because Roth and traditional, it's very easy. One is taxed going in, the other one's taxed going out. That's as simple as it gets. It's more complicated than that. But the idea is, if you're making less money and your effective tax rate that Omen just talked about is lower, then you likely want to steer more towards Roth, because you will probably be in a higher tax bracket when it's time to take that money out in retirement. So you'll pay the taxes now, avoid taxes when you retire. With traditional, if you're making a lot of money now, look at those old guys, 40, 50, 50 years old in the army or the military, then you might consider paying into traditional. Get that tax bracket now when your effective tax rate is high, and you might not have as high of a tax rate in retirement. That's the usual argument for one and the other. And there's a few other arguments I think we're just going to try to hit quickly, because like you said, this podcast is not about Roth versus traditional.
Just kind of to that point though, I would go out on a limb here and just say that most of our audience here, unless you're an 05, 06 and above, it's probably still worth it to do Roth. For the most part, that is not specific advice, but just look towards Roth, mainly because what happens when you get out of the military, especially when you retire out of the military? Now you have a taxable pension. You have probably another set of work that probably makes a lot of money, and it's going to skyrocket you into a much higher tax bracket with a much higher effective tax
More
rate.
Savings.
So, right. This is the point at which then I start to have conversations with people. Okay, let's talk about tax deferred, because you can choose at that moment to reduce your taxable income and push that can down the road to a point in your life where maybe you have less taxable income. And we can have further conversation on that later. But so there's phases in your life where it makes sense to be Roth and phases where it makes sense to be tax deferred.
Good. I think I'm just really grateful you didn't bring up the thing that really happens at retirement, and that's you gain 10 pounds, because that's what I'm going through right now. I thought that was going to be a shot at me.
I mean, we did talk about this episode being a chance to go back to the gym. So
Great point. Yeah. So real quick, it is possible to over Roth. Just one more thing. Okay. I do have people that I've talked to, it's like everything in Roth, which is really cool, because the idea is you have a tax-free retirement, quote unquote. These tax brackets exist in retirement too. So if you've somehow managed to get to retirement and you've got all Roth accounts and that's it, and your effective tax rate is less than 10% on, I don't know, whatever Social Security or whatever income you have, then you're missing out on some of that lower, really low tax brackets in retirement. So and a lot of times it's good to have a mix. But again, yeah, we're off. We're into much more complicated waters here. Let's steer back to shore, shall we?
We can still steer back to shore. Can I take one more detour? You noted over Roth. Yeah. There is such a thing as over tax deferred too. And this really gets people because I think especially when they think, oh, I haven't saved enough, and everything they've done is into tax deferred. And then suddenly they hit their required minimum distribution and they have all kinds of taxable income. It could be a bad thing. All right, now I'll stop. Let's go back to shore and talk about savings.
Okay. So the Roth has an additional feature that is really nice. It's not ideal to take advantage of all the time, or usually even, but it is a feature that should be acknowledged. And that's the fact that you can claw back the contributions tax-free. and penalty free. Because when money's tax thrown into these types of accounts, there's a penalty if you take it out early, right? So if you put it in a traditional side of the TSP or IRA, if you need to get at that money, absent some sort of qualifying event, like some type of emergency and other things, then you will oftentimes be taxed on the withdrawal plus an additional 10%. It's not ideal, especially the fact that you're cutting off your retirement savings. It's not good. However, the Roth has a really nice feature. The Roth IRA, you can pull back the contribution at any time, tax and penalty free. So if you put, $5,000 in your Roth IRA this year, next year if something happens, you can pull $5,000 out penalty and tax free. If you pull more than that, then you're going to be hit with the taxes and penalties potentially on the growth, on the stuff that grew while it was in there. Can you talk about that with the TSP, the version of a Roth TSP, and how that works?
Yeah, it's a little more complicated with the TSP and not really recommended, because TSP is a little bit more of a one-size-fits-all when it comes to trying to pull out your contributions. It doesn't happen. So we haven't mentioned this before on any of our episodes, but a thing called pro rata, right? So when you have a mix of both contributions and growth, when you ask TSP to withdraw money from your account, it's going to take a percentage of both your contributions and the growth, and you will be taxed and penalized on the growth portion. So this really only applies to IRAs where you can designate. In fact, you don't even have to designate on IRAs. The first money out is going to be your contributions. So just a note there if you're not already seeing your basis, the amount of money that you've ever contributed to an IRA, it's worth tracking that. So at least you have that number just in case.
That's a good warning for down the road. Like if you're down the road and you need to access this money. But let's start with the main warning that this is a feature. It's not a part of the plan. If you're starting out, a Roth IRA is really great because you might not have an emergency fund. Well, guess what? A Roth IRA can kind of act like one. I don't recommend treating your Roth IRA like an emergency fund. But if you don't have anything, then it can act in the meantime while you are building up your emergency fund as well. It can act as an extra emergency fund, which is really nice. But just remember, even if you're taking out tax and penalty free, doesn't mean you're not undercutting your potential retirement savings.
We always recommend with the emergency fund that you put at least one speed bump between you and your emergency fund that prevents you from just taking the money and spending it willy-nilly on whatever you want. When you consider your Roth IRA as an emergency fund, I would put 2 or 3 different speed bumps in there, talk with somebody, and make sure that this is a good idea and there are no other options before you start taking money from your Roth IRA for these things.
Right. Yeah, we could talk about this forever, I think. But what are our final takeaways here from this discussion, the Roth and traditional?
Well, number one, taxes are always important. So we always have to talk about taxes and think about taxes when we talk about saving for our retirement. So do we put into Roth TSP, Roth IRA, or tax deferred traditional TSP or IRA? But at the end of the day, none of us have a crystal ball. We can only tell what taxes are doing today, what we think taxes might do, and what we think you might be doing in the future that would impact your taxes. So all we have to go on is history, and that's the best we can do. If we knew what was going to happen, we probably wouldn't even have this podcast.
I think the best, and also the best takeaway too, is just save. Don't worry about it too much. If you're in traditional, you're in Roth and you're wondering to do the right thing. If you're saving, you're doing the right thing. We'll figure it out later. If you have to do Roth conversions or, hey, you oversaved in your Roth. Oh no. Just save. Yeah. Don't let this complexity keep you from saving. And for you young service members out there listening, like, oh my God, how does this apply to me? Don't worry. We're going to take care of you here in a bit. Hey gang, it's Rob here. I wanted to take a moment and tell you a little more about my buddy Omen and his financial planning firm, Formander Wealth Management. As you already know, Omen is a proud Marine Corps retiree turned financial advisor. That's right, his firm is a faith-based financial advice firm. focused on the values and life goals of active duty military, military veterans and retirees, federal and state government employees, and of course, all their families. Formander Wealth Management is a fiduciary, fee-only, flat fee firm. That means there's no commissions, no referral fees, and no percentage of asset management charges. It's just one clear price for advice that is always in your best interest. Whether you're preparing for retirement, navigating a major life change, or simply seeking clarity in your financial decisions, Formander stands ready to serve. Learn more at www.formander.com. That's www.4myndr.com.
Formander Wealth Management LLC is a registered investment advisor in the Commonwealth of Virginia. This advertisement is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice or solicitation to buy or sell securities. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Please consult a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions.
Well, speaking of a bit, let's talk about the order of operations for saving, because there is a strategy to the order of saving. We talked about TSPs, we talked about IRAs, we talked about high yield savings accounts, we've talked about taxable brokerage accounts. What do you save in?
We haven't talked about YOLO yet.
Oh, YOLO! That's what the taxable account's for.
Yeah, there's an order of operations because, to your point, we just talked about the difference. We did talk about the difference between the TSP and IRA. It's not one or the other. You can do both, right? So you've laid out here, I think, a real elegant kind of order of operations, which I really like. And to start it off, in other words, what's the first thing you should do is get the match in your TSP. Yeah, traditional, Rob, I don't care. Get the match. It's free money. I hammered this last episode. I'm just going to, any opportunity.
I think we spent 20 minutes of our 45-minute episode talking about getting the match.
We brought it up multiple times, and I'm prone to do it a couple times now. Get the match. It's free money. My goodness, get the match. So you can do Roth or traditional with that. But the match will go into your traditional. It's not a big deal, but just be mindful that that's where the match goes regardless.
The next one we recommend then going into an IRA. And there's a couple different reasons for this. The first is the flexibility that we've already noted in our previous segment, that you now have a lot more access to this money in the way that you would want to take it out if you needed to take it out in the first place. So you can access the contributions. You actually get a lot more access to investments, and that's a whole nother episode in itself. But there's a lot of flexibility in having your IRAs. And with that, there's some empowerment here that comes with married couples that have spouses, particularly those who maybe don't work for a paycheck. Maybe they're caring for the kids. And there's what's called a spousal IRA.
Yeah, especially for military who might have a spouse that doesn't work because you're PCSing all the time and deploying, et cetera. They have to stay home and they don't earn anything with a job. With an IRA, there is a requirement that you have to have earned income in order to contribute to an IRA. So if you contribute $6,000, you got to show that you made $6,000 that year in order to contribute. I know that sounds strange, but for younger people, if they receive a gift, you can't just throw it into an IRA without having some sort of earned income that you report to the IRS. So the spousal IRA is really nice because it allows your spouse, a non-working spouse, to contribute up to their personal limit as well for an IRA, so long as the earned income that you've earned as a military service member covers both of those contributions between you and your spouse.
Yeah. And the thing is, a spousal IRA is not actually called a spousal IRA. We just refer to it as a spousal IRA. So if you call up Fidelity or Vanguard or Schwab or wherever you get your IRA from, they're not going to know exactly what a spousal IRA is, but they're just going to open you up an IRA
they'll
account.
know what you're talking about.
Right. So we have gotten the match, and now we've got limits on the IRA. For 2025, if you're under 50 years old, you can put $7,000 into your own IRA. If you have a spouse and a spousal IRA, you can put another $7,000 into theirs. What if you max that out and you still have more that you'd like to save? Well, now you can come back to the TSP and start to contribute more into the TSP. The deferral limit for 2025, if you're under 50, is $23,500. It's a lot of money when you think about it. But in reality, adding an IRA to your TSP gives you a total contribution allowance of $30,500. That is 20% of a $152,000 income.
Boom.
So that's going to be more of our senior enlisted senior officers, but it is a reality of some of the income that people are seeing.
Yeah, you can get there, especially even if you start small and bump every year, 1% every year, bump another one every promotion, bump one every 2-year bump, right? You can get there. I have a calculator that I built on that 1% bump article I mentioned that I did a back test on it for it might have been E2 entering into the service and doing this method. In the first contributions per month were $12 a month. And as they did that bump, right, and as that compounded and then compounding interest happened over 20, 24 years, I mean, it's millions, right? As you get promoted and as you carry on into your career and you're levering up that percentage, you can get there. You think you can get to 20%, 30,500 sounds like a lot of money. You can get there. What about if you've got even more savings that you would like to save? So you've got the match, you went over to IRA, you maxed that out. Now you're back and you're maxed it out your employee limit for your contributions for a TSP. Above that, now you still want to save.
My favorite account after that is the taxable account. People think, well, it's a taxable account, I'm going to get taxed. Yes, you're going to get taxed. However, if you already make so much money that you are maxing out all of your tax efficient accounts, if you put money into a taxable account and hold on to those investments for 1 year and a day, you now qualify for long-term capital gains rates, which are 0, 15%, and 20%, which I guarantee are, and I use guarantee very rarely, but I guarantee that rate is going to be lower than the ordinary tax rates that you are paying on your income. So at the end of the day, it is still a tax deal.
Definitely. I hate the taxable account. There's people, I've talked to people that think that their entire balance in a taxable account is taxable income every single year. Like if they've saved $100,000 in a brokerage account, that they owe taxes on $100,000. And even more so, or they think just the growth of it. They haven't sold anything and it's just the growth they have to. No, none of this is true, right? You can actually be very tax efficient with a brokerage account. Extremely. Like reach out, email us. I also have articles to share that I went through this and looked at it, because there might be an example, there might be a case that we throw the brokerage account above maxing out your TSP. Because as I talked about earlier, if you're doing the 10% and you started out early, you might get to your 30s and you're slamming money into this TSP account you can't touch for another 25 years, right? Well, you might have some goals that you could reach in the meantime. A brokerage account can really help. That's a great point.
I want to emphasize one point on that you mentioned, that people think that it's the entire balance in the taxable account that gets taxed. It is only the gains. It's only the growth.
And only when you sell it.
And only when you sell it. Yeah, there are a lot of advantages to having a taxable brokerage account. So I really don't like the stigma attached to the word taxable.
I'm glad you brought that up. But we failed on the last order of operations, and that is YOLO, right?
Hang on. I have to put one out here for our E2s, E3s who are just getting started. And they're listening to this like, $30,500 into my TSP and IRA. Are you kidding me right now? Like that's nowhere on their radar.
This is a good pause. I think I know where you're going. I think I know where you're going with this. Yeah, go ahead. Because this is a good point. Like I said, we talked about this. It's kind of complicated. We made it as simple as possible, but this is complicated and intimidating. So what do you do when you're just starting out? And none of what we just said made sense to you. What do you do?
So when you've gone through boot camp or you've gone through your officer candidate school or whatever paperwork that you've done, you've started a contribution potentially to your TSP. I think at the time of this recording right now, it's 3%. If I'm not mistaken, the government automatically puts in 1% for you. I would recommend just start with 5%. Just start with 5%. This is not specific investment advice, but start with 5%. And the lifetime cycle funds pick the longest one out there. Right now is 2070 was just published over the summer. So Life Cycle Fund 2070, 5%, and just let it go and chill out for just a little while.
5% Roth 2070. I'm not telling, again, another disclaimer, not investment advice, but man, I'll fight you on the idea that you could go wrong doing that. Because, I mean, you're going to end up in a good spot very quickly. And then compounding interest takes over, and in 10 years down the road, you're going to have a problem of like, okay, now what do I do because I've succeeded so far towards this goal? Then YOLO. Then YOLO.
All right. Now we can get to YOLO.
YOLO.
So what do we do? Like we've got 20% that we are saving, but we didn't designate all of it towards retirement, right?
Yeah.
We even said maybe split up 10% towards retirement and the other 10%, you can do whatever.
Yeah.
So let's whatever this thing.
If
YOLO.
you've done all of this order of operations, you're probably oversaving for retirement. Probably. Okay. But if you're in your brokerage account, now that's good. You do other things. The term YOLO, in all seriousness, I know it's kind of a clickbaity thing for us to put on the podcast, and I love that. But it gets a bad rap, and we're joking and laughing about it because YOLO is always used to justify something stupid. I'm going to buy a car I can't afford. We're going to buy a house we can't afford. You know, we're going to buy a boat we can't afford. I'm going to go 20 miles over the speed limit on this country road for fun. Yeah, I'm getting kind of serious here, but you know what I mean? It's that idea, YOLO, therefore, i.e., now I'm going to do something stupid because you only live once. Right? And there is a meme I've seen. It's like, it's ironic. People shout or say YOLO before doing something that flies in the face of the fact that you only live once. So I'm going to do this really stupid financial thing. I'm going to do this really stupid physical thing under the justification of YOLO when it could really ruin your life, potentially, financially or physically. However, I am a fan of YOLO when it comes to good decisions. Because if you've done this order of operations and you're throwing money into a savings account and you're throwing money into a brokerage account and you have liquid assets and you've got wealth and you've got your retirement taken care of and you've got your children's education taken care of and you've got those deepest goals that mean the most to you and they're all taken care of and you've got money left aside, there are opportunities for a very healthy YOLO. The home renovation that you've been dreaming of, the car, you know, that you always wanted when you were in college, that really cool car or a motorcycle or whatever it is that you've always dreamed of. This is what personal finance is about and why we plan is because personal finance and success in finance doesn't mean just saving wisely. It means spending wisely as well. So if you've done all this good behavior and you've done all this, then by all means, YOLO.
Nothing to add to that. I mean, that's exactly what I try to get across to my clients as well. You save responsibly, you spend responsibly. And all of this is aimed towards a life and a lifestyle that you've dreamed of, not somebody else's lifestyle, yours.
Yeah. Yeah. So now's the time on the fiscal foxhole. This is our ongoing trivia challenge. Last week, Omen stumped me on his trivia challenge. It's my turn to repay the favor. I think I found a question that is equally on par as confusing and interesting and impossible to answer. So it's coming right back at you, buddy. Just a fair warning.
Have you written it in crayon?
I wrote it with my knuckles as I drug on the ground. How about that? Yeah. All right, let me reach in here and see what I can find. I got to find it. I'm in the foxhole. I'm going to pull it out of my rucksack and read it. Okay, so for the quiz challenge, currently tied 0-0, by the way. I did fail last episode. Omen did stump me, so we are 0-0 tied up until here, which I imagine he might get lucky. The question to you, Omen, is which of the following is a real example of someone using a self-directed IRA to generate retirement income? Is it A, buying a racehorse and entering it into the Kentucky Derby? B, purchasing a spaceship in a video game and leasing it to other players for virtual rent? C, investing in a haunted house attraction and charging admission? Or D, acquiring a vending machine empire and stocking it with retirement-themed snacks?
I automatically knew by the question that this was going to get pretty ridiculous.
Self-directed, and what Omen was referring to is self-directed IRAs are a really unique vehicle. We'll talk about it in a second, but yeah, go ahead.
So I'm trying to look for the most ridiculous answer here. Question on the racehorse. Can I clarify on the racehorse?
Go ahead.
What was the race? Like, was the rider the owner of the self-directed IRA?
Oh, you mean okay, so you're going towards the materially participate. Okay.
Right.
Let's say no.
Are you going to ask this question?
Yeah, you're going to ask a specific question about each answer.
Did the IRA owner go up in the spaceship?
I'm not answering any more questions.
Okay. Fine. All right. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. I mean, I'm going to have to go with just see my way out of this. These are all ridiculous, completely ridiculous answers. So I'm going to see my... No, you know what? No, I'm going to go with A. I'm changing my answer. I'm going
Buying a racehorse and entering in the Kentucky Derby is the incorrect answer. The story is that someone, and I tried to find more information about it, but it just kind of kept giving me the general overview. The answer is B. Someone purchased a spaceship in a video game and leased it to other players for virtual rent. Now, there are some carve-outs. The self-directed IRA. We talked about Roth IRA, traditional IRA. Self-directed IRA is a completely different animal. It's too much to get into, but the interesting thing is that you can do really unique things with a self-directed IRA. You could put in different types of investments. Let's just say it as that, right? But there are two types of things you cannot put in still. It's life insurance and collectibles, right? So what this person did is they bought the spaceship and they rented it out. That's the most important part of this, is the fact that the person in this scenario did not play the spaceship. Because if you can't, what's it called? Self-dealing, right? You can't invest in something with self-directed IRA and then materially participate in it, right? You can't be a part of it. So I think that's where this person got away with this. Now, there's all kinds of problems with this. Like, you can't put collectibles, right, in there. So if the IRS came in and said, hey, no, this is like an EFT, it's like a collectible, you can't use it. My theory is this person did this and it just flew under the radar, right? Or the IRS looked at it and they just rolled their eyes. Like, is this worth it? Are we going to fight this thing?
So is this an actual story? Like, this is a true story?
As far as my research is concerned, it is a true story. But it is interesting because it also provides kind of the way to talk about how that this person found this way to, like, slide what they wanted to do into a self-directed IRA. It's wild.
Number one, I think AI is hallucinating on you. Number two, let this be a fair warning to anybody. We've got maybe like 3 listeners maybe by this time, but let this be a warning that this could get complicated really fast if you're talking about self-directed IRAs, and maybe you want to talk to somebody about that first.
Absolutely. Yeah, I doubt this person contacted a professional. So looks like we're still tied 0-0, and I'm bracing for the cruel and unusual question that you are going to prepare for me next episode. But before we get to that one, let's wrap this one up. What do you got for us? What are our key takeaways for today?
We got 3 takeaways. Number 1, if you're worried about the market during a government shutdown, historically, it hasn't had a significant impact, and even still, a well-diversified and balanced portfolio adjusted for your risk tolerance should allow you to weather the storms without much worry. Our second takeaway is, if you're wondering how much to save for retirement, start easy. We've got a cash flow framework for that, 20%. Use that on your total gross income towards your retirement goals. Once you determine your dollar amount to save each month towards retirement, save that first, and better yet, automate it. And finally, where do you put your 20%? Determine your effective tax rate and take a look into your crystal ball to estimate the tax rate you may pay into the future to decide Roth versus traditional. Then get your match in your employer plan, max out your IRAs, come back and max out your employer plan, and finally, save into your taxable brokerage account. YOLO!
We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions you'd like answered on the show, please send us a note to fiscalfoxhole@gmail.com. If you heard something today that you'd like to discuss further, or you just want to dig deeper into your own financial game plan, both Rob and Omen are accepting new clients and always happy to chat. You'll find the links to their websites or to book appointments in the show notes. Rob Moore and Omen Quilvog are both registered investment advisor representatives. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. While they are both advisors, they are not your advisors. Therefore, nothing you hear on Fiscal Foxhole should be taken as specific investment, legal, or tax advice. For guidance tailored to your situation, please consult a qualified professional who understands your individual circumstances.
Omen, I have a question for you.
Yeah, go on.
As a financial professional, if you have a client that wants to get a dog, right? And they're married, they got a family. Let's imagine this client is married, has a family, and they've been thinking about getting a dog, and they might have talked to their spouse about it a little bit in the last year, just here and there, but no traction on going forward with this decision. And they brought that decision to you. It's like, hey, what do I do? Would you tell them to talk to their spouse before they bought that dog?
We're dog people, so that sounds like a move my wife might make, but I think she'd actually still run it by me because she knows that pets cost money. I think generally what I would tell people is to lean on the side of going ahead and telling your spouse about it, not surprising, mainly because it could go really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like this could be an awesome surprise,
Mm-hmm.
but it could go really, really badly as well. And if like at that point, what are you going to do? Take the dog back? So I would lean towards telling your spouse.
Yeah. Can I ask
Before.
an oddly specific follow-up series of questions?
Okay.
Yeah. So what if it's a 11-week-old, 35-pound Great Dane puppy, and your husband is retiring or currently in the process of retiring from the Army, and therefore will likely be more of his responsibility since he'll be home more of the day working on his financial planning firm. What about that case? Would that change your advice much?
Can I actually answer your question with a question?
Yeah.
Is that dog sitting in your lap right now?
She is not. No, this is a, by the way. Yeah. My wife pulled this weekend. It is true. We have talked about a dog, dogs exist. Like that's the extent of what we've talked about, but we have socialized a little bit of the idea of eventually getting a dog. Yeah. Our kids are teenagers. I never had a dog. So I'm on the happy side of neutral with this decision. But yeah, I rolled home on Sunday after my son's baseball game, and she comes walking out with this giant baby. This thing, it's adorable. It's sweet, really sweet. Great Danes are very, very chill dogs. So I'm happy. I do love the dog, but it is a puppy. It's a 35-pound puppy. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wild.
I mean, Great Dane's is a small horse. So even when they're puppies.
Yeah. Did you have pets, or do you have pets?
We've got a 80-pound pit bull. So, also very friendly to us. And, I mean, he's friendly with other people as well, but
80?
Most people don't like pit bulls.
Yeah. 80. I didn't know this. 80 pounds.
Yeah. 80 pounds of muscle.
Oh my God.
He is a bull. But like he's Velcro to us. Like he is on us all the time. He does not like other pets, but we adopted him. It's the first time we've ever gotten a pit bull. And, he's super sweet to us, and he loves people, but he runs up on people. And so when you see a 80-pound pit bull running up to you and you have no idea if he's going to lick you or tear your arm off, most people they think the latter. So
yeah, I don't care if a pit bull's running me. I don't care if the tongue's hanging out and the tail is wagging. Like it's like, oh my God, here comes this monster. The thing I'll ask though is an 80-pound dog. I'm learning. So Lily is her name. This Great Dane. She's gonna be 140 pounds, and I'm looking up how much that dog will eat.
That is a human.
Yeah. Dude, we're talking about changing our grocery bill budget. I'm not kidding. I looked up, I had no idea how much dog food cost. And we're not buying, we'll buy good stuff. She needs special stuff. She's a Great Dane. So my wife brought that and I've started doing some research. And I'm like, we have a toddler again. Like it's about as much as you would budget for maybe, you know, a child before puberty. Like that's kind of what it feels like.
I mean, I imagine you're building a barn out back. You've got the horse stable. You've got everything for this dog. So.
Yeah. Anyway, so there you go. Extra bonus financial advice from Omen that my wife did not yield.
And last question here, like so was this a good result or a bad result?
It's a good one. It's good. Yesterday I was working on the couch. She snuggled up to my lap for like 2.5 hours. Super sweet. And then this morning I got the pleasure of picking up my first full load out in the front yard. Man-sized. Can I say that? Man-sized. Like we need a barn. We're going to need a new trash can.
You can sell manure.